Yeah, welcome back. So our next talk is going to be from Benji. I met Benji a while back while at Twitter as a software engineer, and then Benji flipped over to helping software engineers onboard. And so we've heard a few talks on onboarding recently and moving everything online, and dealing with tooling and sort of social agreements around that, etc. And I think Benj is going to bring a different sort of twist to what is important to successfully onboard, especially in the new work from home environment. Yeah, so with that, I'm going to pass it on to Benji from Slack. So let me stop sharing.
All right.
It's all yours.
Hey everybody, I'm really excited to be here with you today. And Marco just introduced the talk, Creating Psychological Safety During Remote Engineering Onboarding. I'm playing with some new hardware for this, so if anything seems not quite right, just let me know. Just go ahead and unmute and tell me. So my name is Benji Shine. My pronouns are he, him, his. I'm an organizational effectiveness specialist at Slack, where I've been for 2.5 years, but before that, I was a software engineer for 20 years. I'm just gonna start my timer here. I stopped being a software engineer because I had a death march project where I damaged my wrists, hands, thumbs, elbows really badly from way too much programming. And so part of what you're going to see in the presentation that I'm giving you now is some of the ways that I've found to work around the inability to type and use a mouse in anywhere near normal amounts. You should also know that I'm a transgender man, which means that I spent the first 10 years of my career as a woman doing software engineering, and that was in the 90s and the aughts when there were fewer women doing software engineering. I also want to tell you that I have 2 cats, that's Sam and Aria, and they are probably going to interrupt us at some point. What I just gave you there was the way that I introduce myself when I'm welcoming new engineers to Slack. And it's a little bit more detail than I would necessarily give in a professional environment, but it's important at Slack because it sets the expectations for how I show up and how you can show up. So I run engineering onboarding at Slack for the last, I've been doing it for 2.5 years, but explicitly for the last 10 months. How many months? 8 months. I've been doing it exclusively remotely. We had our first fully remote class on March 3rd. We sent them home after 1 day in the office, actually. I think it's more than 15 cohorts. And what's been really useful is that these people are really, really willing to tell me how it's going. So that means I've gotten thousands of surveys. We ask for surveys just after every, oh my God, so many surveys. Literally thousands of surveys. So I asked you over the break to think about what words come to mind. Time zones, yes. Engagement, is it boring? And loneliness, will they get it? Oh, there goes the cat. Sam wants to get in. Nope, sorry, not today, Sam. Time zones, fun. But engagement and culture, community challenging. Yes, those are the challenges that I faced as well. So I have learned a bunch of stuff by getting to iterate over and over, being in the unique experience of being a extremely experienced software engineer who gets to run an engineering onboarding program. And then that I get to do it at Slack, which is really focused on making people's working life productive, simpler, pleasant. So I try and bring that to engineering onboarding. You folks are learning and development specialists, and so you probably are on board with me that anxiety blocks learning. And I think that's even more present during onboarding, where not only are you anxious, probably, but you're also trying to prove your worth. And that really blocks asking questions. And asking questions is how you can get answers and get over the anxiety. So what I have learned in the last 8 months especially is that creating psychological safety unlocks learning. But how exactly can we do that when we are just talking to our little cameras and scattered all over the world? So there are 5 ways, maybe 4, depending on, because I haven't given this talk before and I'm not sure exactly how the timing is going to work. But there are 5 particular things I'm going to walk through that you can do in your engineering onboarding. First of all, really clear structure. Engineers as a whole like things going in order and like things to have predictable time. So I schedule most of every day of the first week from around 9 a.m. to around 2 p.m. I block that off on their calendar and I let them know you're going to be doing engineering onboarding at these times. I don't actually schedule every minute of that for them. I give them, I meet with them in the morning and I give them some tasks to do, and then I give them support all throughout the day. But I make sure that they know this is when you're doing those things. Also, yes, time zones. I schedule this for 9 to 2. And then if I have people in Dublin or Melbourne, I meet with them specially one-on-one, and I make sure that they have contacts one-on-one with other people they're going to be working with. There are secrets with coffee hours, AKA beer hours, that help. The other thing that I really want you all to do, because people love this, is creating a really, really detailed checklist that has some things that are completely easy to check off. The first thing they check off is meet Benji, attend Welcome Engineer session that they just attended. And then there's lots of encouragement in there. Like I have them echo to the shell, you are doing great. Where if you're comfortable working at the shell, then you don't even care, you might skip it. And if you're uncomfortable working at the shell, you're the people I want to get comfortable. So I tell you, just echo, you are doing great. And then people get this moment of, oh, maybe I am, I like that. Very, very detailed checklists so they know if they're doing the right thing and what they haven't done. So it's the single most requested feature. Now I'm telling you all about how we do engineering onboarding at Slack. Is it any good? So one of the surveys, I just pulled one, very first thing we hear, what was helpful, the onboarding checklist was very useful. That's after months and months and months of hearing, we need a clearer onboarding checklist. So we built it. Slackbot reminders, got a call out to the product there. And then the staff, we get to invest a lot of our time in doing onboarding. And so we get to make it better. We also asked throughout in these surveys, what make you feel you belong? And one of them, they said, is working through the engineering checklist and being able to follow every step. It's that feeling of self-efficacy. All right, that was thing number 1, is extremely clear tasks and structure. The next thing is fast and friendly technical support and extremely detailed setup instructions. You're going to be dealing with people setting up their computer on one of the most anxious days of the year, in a day that's already, in a year that's already pretty anxious. So make instructions detailed enough that a manager can do it. We've had several VPs of engineering come through my onboarding, and they got through it. They actually did pretty well. And then we create the expectations as you're doing it. If something goes wrong, it can't possibly be your fault. You just got here. You can't have screwed anything up yet. It's my fault. And then I predict what sort of errors they're going to get. And I let them know, I got you. We got that covered. But still, people are going to be asking in private, DM means a private message, saying, I get this weird error when I try to clone the source on my machine. And that interrupting one-on-one message is brutal, because it's asking someone who may or may not know how to do it, it's interrupting them, and it's creating a time where that person is just stuck and they don't know how to move forward. So my 3rd suggestion, we're still on the 2nd suggestion. We created a channel called New Eng Questions. During the session, I make them repeat it after me, or I'm not going to make you do it, but there's so many channels to remember. So we have this channel, New Eng Questions, and we tell them it is okay to ask a question before searching for the answer in this channel. It's normally not how people show up in a technical environment, but we tell them to do this because we want them to know how much we support them, and we want to unblock them. If you don't know how to do something and you have to go off and search for it, and you don't find the answer, your anxiety is just going to be going up and up and up. And their questions are actually really easy. We know how to handle them. Then I heard of, in that we talked about what comes to mind, lack of engagement, lack of connection. So when we start to have somebody from somewhere answer Eugene's question, then Eugene makes a contact with Jennifer. Jennifer starts knowing Eugene. And it's not actually very expensive, because in this channel, we have one person asking questions and literally hundreds of programmers who are available to answer the questions. Software developers don't develop software all the time. When they need a break, especially lately, they go and look at Slack, and it is wonderful to be able to go and help a new person. So we don't interrupt people. We use cycles that wouldn't be active otherwise. And then the look on their face when they first get a question answered in New Eng questions, it's just amazing. But for us, that's even better, because they suddenly understand particular ways that Slack can be powerful. And we're working on Slack, so getting excited about the technology itself is really good for commitment to the product, excitement about working on the product. So when I get that message from Eugene, which I get all the time, I say, that's a great question for New Eng questions. It wasn't even a question, it doesn't matter. I just repeat that over and over. And then they go and post it there, and then they get an answer under 5 minutes, almost always under 3 minutes. It's great for the whole company. In fact, people keep on posting new-ish questions for months and months and months, because this channel has become a great resource for anyone to get questions answered, because so many people are in it. All right, so the way that you can do it, invite senior ICs and recent hires. And then I monitor the questions there, and if no one is answering it, then I go out and I find the people who can answer it. Oh, it's a Vitesse question. Brian Ramos knows about Vitesse. Let me pull him in here. So that way people feel more and more supported. I also coach people on their questions, because it's hard to get used to Slack and asking technical questions in Slack. So you can also do New Eng for other cohorts, new iOS Eng. And that's all I'm gonna say about that. All right, let's get a little, systemic racism is real. Wow, what a pivot. Systemic racism is real. It matters in engineering. And then, so I want to make Slack a place that everyone can do the best of work of their lives. And it's really important to me that people feel included and people feel that they belong. One of the ways that I get to do that is by starting off by introducing myself as a trans man and saying, yeah, I was a woman software engineer for a long time. I know what that's like. But let's look specifically at what we can do to welcome everybody. The first thing is that on day one, I have a session with them that just welcomes them. And I don't make them do anything. I just say, here we are. I'm glad you're here. Very importantly, I say, you belong here. We repeat this message and this slide to them many times over the course of their first week. Just saying it isn't enough. You know, it's a very nice drawing. I didn't draw it. It's a very nice drawing. But what can we actually do to actually demonstrate it? Well, it starts off with introductions. When I have everyone introduce themselves, this is the slide I give. But I also say we're going to go around the room in alphabetical order by first name. That by first name thing means that we go ahead and we call on people whose names may be unfamiliar to American engineers. They're not difficult names, they're just unfamiliar to American ears. I want to make sure that everyone gets called on and everyone gets a chance to speak. We also ask you to use your pronouns. And when we say what team we'll be joining, I explicitly tell people, don't tell us your level. I don't care right now that you're a senior staff engineer. It's not helpful to the people in the room who aren't. We don't have secret levels or anything. It's just, it's not helpful in that moment. And then I ask, how are you feeling today? And I praise the first person who confesses they're feeling anxious. They're feeling anxious anyways. Let's admit it. And I also this makes me really uncomfortable, and I do it anyways because I've heard from other people that it makes them feel more welcome, is I ask, am I pronouncing your name correctly? The way that your name sounds is your identity, and that's important to me. So I'm trying to respect that. You don't have to prove yourself, just be yourself. We explicitly tell them that they belong here and there are people who look like them here. But then even more so, we show them that we have engineers who look like them. So we recruit and nurture presenters who are BIPOC, URG, LGBTQ. URG means underrepresented genders, and that can include women and gender nonconforming people and trans people. I actively recruit these people and I help them feel confident welcoming new engineers. One of the survey feedback we got back was, what made you feel you belong? Seeing an Asian woman presenting Intro to Slack architecture. Yeah, she's a staff backend engineer. You bet I want her presenting Intro to Slack architecture. And then even just seeing so many different types of people. Slack actually is doing really well on racial and national diversity and abilities diversity. And so I want you to see that, even though you don't get to walk into the cafeteria anymore. Let's also talk about how I handle people at multiple different skill levels. I want onboarding to feel just as comfortable if you are just out of a boot camp as if you are, you just left your job at Google for 20 years. We tell them you set the pace, but that's not really enough to take them all the way there because people are still inherently really, really anxious. This diagram is a classic on the internet. If you haven't seen it, please go search for Interaction for Social Change, Equality. Yeah, equality just says we give everybody a boost. Equity says we give people the boost that they need to have the same experience. And then we do it in a way that is quiet and invisible. So we start that day giving everybody the same written instructions and we give them a quick demo. And then we give them as much time as they need to do the exercise. After seeing this happen over and over, I know that it'll take some people half an hour, it'll take some people 3 hours. But if I give them 3 hours, everybody's completely gonna get it done. And we look at it together the next day. Same startup tasks, different level of support. Then everybody gets the feeling of, that's a trophy, I drew that. Like I said, I'm using my hands in different ways. And so instead of finding clip art, I'm drawing little trophies for you. The exact way that their trophy manifests is they do a new developer exercise that puts their name and an image of their choosing on a secret welcome engineers page on slack.com. And so this is, they literally see themselves belonging among all the other engineers. Even our VPs of engineering get there. All right. Crucial thing, especially for remote and especially for now, is that we acknowledge emotional challenges. Because, oh my God, they're real. Come on, they are real. Starting a new job is hard. Starting a new job remotely is hard. But then there's more. The pandemic, social isolation, political polarization, financial insecurity, parenting, sharing an office with complaining cats or with another person who's on conference calls all day. It's all challenging. And by acknowledging it, we make room for it. We tell them really clearly, above all else, take care of yourself and your family. And there's a bunch of other stuff like go ahead and eat, go ahead and take a break, which it seems ridiculous to me that people need to be told this, but this is how anxious people are, that they do need to be told it's okay to take a break. It's okay to eat during a meeting. And I want you to tell your people this. It's okay to eat during a meeting. We had somebody doing it during the startup of this. He said, I'm going to turn off my camera so you don't have to see my burrito. It's like, great. I'm glad that you're feeding yourself. We're humans. We have human bodies. We need to take care of them. I repeat this a couple times, and our CEO, Stuart Butterfield, repeats this. Above all else, take care of yourself and your family. You're going to anyways. These new hires are going to be taking care of their anyways. They're going to do it. Another thing that's been extremely impactful is that we just mentioned that imposter syndrome exists. I often will have someone in the cohort describe it to everyone else. This is maybe the third thing that gets called out most when I ask what made you feel you belong. Just mention that imposter syndrome is real. Really helps. Another thing, yes, I go really deep into this because I expect that you have good engineers that you're hiring. And I expect that you have a pretty good process for getting engineers on board because you already have that going. What you really need now in this world of remoteness, what I found to be helpful to really add is this element of reassurance and acknowledging that the world is really significantly more complicated than usual. So I have daily syncs with them where I provide reassurance. Great question you can ask is, what's one thing that you are anxious about or need help with? Phrasing it that way presumes that there is at least one thing that you're anxious about or needs help with. It gives them permission to be anxious or to need help. And they do. People can almost always come up with something. Sometimes it's a question I can't answer, like what do I need WageWorks benefits for if I'm working from home? But just giving them the space and saying, yes, every one of you is going to have one of these questions pretty much every day. And then I normalize anxiety. All right, I'm at 10:37. I'm going to go quickly through explicit social onboarding. This is another really important thing with being remote, is that when we're all in the office together, you meet people, and here we're not. So one thing is that I demonstrate the culture with evidence. This is a time where I just asked, does anybody have room for one more at Thanksgiving? And 3 different people spoke up. Another person spoke up. I went to somebody's Thanksgiving who I didn't know at all, who I never would have interacted with otherwise. And she's now a really good friend. And I now have a lot of friends within customer experience agents. This is showing the culture, not just saying the culture. Then also we use a tool called donut.ai, which is invested in by Slack. And it sets up donuts and coffee for people in a channel. I explicitly tell them on their checklist, go join this channel. And then every Tuesday, they get invited to coffee with someone else. They don't always meet, but we have about 30 different meetings every week, which means 60 people connecting every week out of, I can't tell you how many engineers, but there's around 2,500 employees. So like 60 connections a week, it's not nothing. We use workflows to get people to introduce themselves. All right, now I'm going to jump back to my conclusion. All right, so I promised you I was going to tell you 5 ways to create psychological safety. And I talked about new eng questions and reassurance at daily syncs, about getting everybody to have a win of some sort, giving everybody the same startup tasks and different levels of support. And then finally, just repeating, you belong here, and then demonstrating over and over that you do belong here. Psychological safety unlocks learners. This is how you can make it in your engineering onboarding. All right. Let's see. I see there's some questions in the.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Benji. That's super awesome. And we promised a different spin to engineering onboarding, a totally different angle to look at it. And thank you for sharing psychological safety. So important. So I love it. And I also love the new tool that you have for presenting. There's always this like a meta sort of like just how you even showed up and presented and all that. So thank you for that. So questions. I was looking at Danielle and Andrew's questions, and they basically have to do with the new Eng channel, the new Eng questions channel. And so I guess the question is, you know, how much do you need to be there to kind of like, you know, get it going, you know, high five people or get them sort of, you know, push the conversation so that it actually happens. So that's question one. And question two is, you know, what do you do about questions that are sort of more or less repetitive? Do you then bottle them elsewhere and then kind of be sort of move it out of Slack, or do you just direct people to search, or just have it repeat itself and that's totally fine?
Yeah, good questions. So I was worried that I was going to have to track down a lot of people and get them to give answers, but actually it fits in so well with Slack's culture that people really spontaneously enjoy giving answers a lot of the time. I sometimes have to track down questions where the question is so obscure that no one who hangs out in the channel would know. But actually, I have to tell certain people, please stop answering questions, or please wait a little longer and give someone else a try, because the same people love answering questions. And I want to make sure that there's question answering to go around, because it does build up a person's reputation to be able to answer questions. And yes, when the same questions keep coming up, that tells me that I need to improve the documentation and improve my presentations such that we don't see them anymore. And it's a beautiful way for me to, yeah, get it better and better.
Got it. So it's a feedback loop back into your content that you then use to improve your own onboarding, right?
Yes, it's actually also been a feedback loop into the organization saying, folks, we need to prioritize getting a better way to do something that I can't do myself. And I said, this comes up a lot in new Eng questions, and that's evidence right there.
Got it. Cool. And so Sandy's asking, how are you doing your check-ins? Is this one-on-one or group?
For the most part, it is group check-ins where there'll be 20 minutes in the morning that's just titled Daily Sync and Group Check-in. And if they're really big groups, if they're bigger than around 10, I would probably split them up into 2 breakout rooms, and I'd have a different organized helper who's on board with this social process to run the other breakout room. However, with particular people, I will reach out one-to-one, and I usually do, to make myself available. So people who are in their first technical job, people who have some sort of disability, people who are in really far away places from where we are, I will usually reach out and say explicitly, I'm available, and make space for them to share problems that are maybe more private and that they don't want to share publicly.
Got it. So sounds like you got this down. You're very good at creating the psychological safety and teaching it to new hires. How do you scale yourself? How do you teach others to be able to also be good at creating the psychological safety so that it goes beyond you? How do you make it so easy that the manager can do it?
Right. And that actually is part of my job at Slack, is to help make all of our training be inclusive and welcoming. Part of it is getting it down to these really clear instructions, but then also, for example, I go to the different functional roles, and I've been working with them to get their onboarding processes down to very, very concrete. So we now have a repo that's called skills, where people have the list of their onboarding tasks for this is how you do it in iOS, this is how you do it if you're an SRE. And I go and briefly consult with those people and say, I think you need more detail here. Tell them exactly what to type in, but then I empower the different functional roles to do it themselves. Then also, as I pull in different helpers, I will teach them one-on-one, maybe after the fact. I'll say, when you responded like this to that person, I think that might have felt this way. I would have done it this way, or I'll even ask them, how do you think you might have done that would have given a different feeling? So, sorry, what am I using? This is actually Logitech Brio and the Logitech Capture software. And then mostly this is just handwritten in Notability or just an iPad drawing app. Yeah, there is only one of me, but honestly, just knowing that, for people to know that there is a human who is a transgender man, who was a former engineer, who joined learning and development, who had to stop using a computer because he used a computer too much. Like, I think just the knowledge that I exist is going to bring a little more empathy to the people as they interact with someone else. You can look at someone else and not know whether or not their hands are in a lot of pain that day. And I think that seeing me sometimes changes people's understanding of what a trans person is, because you can't tell by looking at me that I'm trans. And probably when you heard that I was a woman for the first 20 years of my life, it was a little bit confusing. And so that's also part of how I can scale myself, is just by being honest about who I am.
Got it. And then you also have that Git repo. So Git check Git clone skills and then check out psychological safety, right?
Not quite like that, but I should. Yeah, actually, I'm hoping to. This is my first time giving this talk, and I'm hoping to give it at more conferences and in more detail, because I want to help other people learn these skills.
Got it. Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you, Benji. Super interesting, and we can have some of the prompted questions that you came up with for the breakout sessions afterwards.